Okay guys, well I wanted to bring your attention to these two articles that were posted on signofthetimes.net because one is actually quite amusing in regards to a global warming expedition which was stopped in its tracks by the Arctic sea ice that they were actually claiming wasn't there. But the other is also continuing to show us how they are fudging the data to give the appearance that the climate is warming and mankind are to blame. And because this is due to the activity of humans, that somehow they are justified in charging us taxes, and this will magically create some type of magic bullet that rectifies, all of the damage that is happening to our planet, and all of these severe weather events will suddenly just cease to continue. Now, most of the damage that we are doing to our planet is due to us actually raping our planet for resources, which we then sell for little bits of paper that a small group of men have deemed are of value. And due to that, we are clear-felling forests, we are filling our oceans with plastic, we are drilling our water tables for gas, and we are also extracting oil, and due to the processes that are being used, this is also resulting in oil spills, and then we are using the product from the oil in our cars, and we are creating pollution within our atmosphere. None of this is actually related to the severe weather events and the catastrophic weather events that are currently taking place around our planet. And we know this because the media themselves are telling us that these severe events that we've been experiencing are the result of El Nino. Now, if you go and do the research into El Nino, you'll find out that El Nino is actually a naturally occurring event and something that they don't understand. So again, we can see how the narrative is to give the appearance that we are creating all of these changes and these severe events due to our behaviour, but yet when you actually look into this, the only damage that we are causing to our planet is to our environment through our own activity of destroying her. As for all of these other events that are resulting in increased rain and hail and hurricanes and all of these other events, these are actually tied to our climate, which is changing due to the cycle that we exist in. And just as we have a cycle within our annual year, and we call these the seasons, summer, winter, autumn, spring, we can actually look to the macrocosm and translate that to a larger cycle that we also live in. And this is the ages, the precessional cycle that we exist in. Now, another way of looking at this is that you can look at the annual year, where we have a solar return, as a physical year that applies to our physical body. When we age by years. We have a birthday which is celebrated every year, but those who actually understand the information on a deeper level understand that there's a spiritual and ethereal side to everything as well. And so we can look at the great year, the precessional cycle of 26,000 years, as the cycle that is basically correlating to our ethereal nature, our soul. And so we are now coming at the end of that great year. And this is why we are seeing these changes. And this is why we have to understand that these changes are resulting from forces and influences in the larger macrocosm. At the moment, we have establishment scientists that want to trap our minds into this little box that only ever looks at our immediate environment and blames everything within our immediate environment. And this is how they can fool people that it is human behavior that is causing all of these changes. Yet scientists themselves are looking at the activity on our sun in solar cycle 24, and they are also puzzled by the behavior that is being exhibited by our sun. And so we can see that by their own admission, we are also seeing changes within our solar system on a larger scale. This is also not to even address the other changes they are seeing happening with the other planets in our solar system. Is that due to man-made behavior also? So we can see that when we actually start looking into all of this global warming narrative that is pushed on us daily, there are huge holes in this theory that just don't add up. And so unless you are actually going and doing the investigating yourself, unless you are actually going and looking at the data yourself, you will not see the larger picture, and you will actually just assume that what is being reported by Fox News, CNN, the Weather Channel is actually the complete picture, when really they are just giving us a small piece of the picture and providing us with a narrative that suits the agenda of the establishment to keep us blind to the cycle that we really do exist in. Because if people actually understood the larger cycles that we did exist in, then their behaviour would change. They would take more responsibility for themselves and for their souls. But because mankind now have this understanding that ends with their physical form, they do not see any further from that physical extension of who they are. They do not understand that there is an ethereal side to them, and there is an ethereal side to nature and their complete existence. But because it can't be measured in the physical, because you need to use other sciences to understand that side, they just dismiss it. So these two articles, one, it's just basically more confirmation of showing that they are creating this false narrative about global warming. But two, it's also quite amusing because this one here, in regards to this global warming expedition, was actually stopped in its tracks because the Arctic sea ice that they claimed wasn't there and they were going to prove wasn't there was actually there. And so it goes on to say that a group of adventurers, sailors, pilots and climate scientists that recently started a journey around the North Pole in an effort to show the lack of ice has been blocked from further travels by ice. The Polar Ocean Challenge is taking a 2-month journey that will see them go from Bristol, Alaska to Norway, then to Russia, through the Northeast Passage, back to Alaska, through the Northwest Passage to Greenland, and then ultimately back to Bristol. Their objective, as laid out by their website, was to demonstrate that the Arctic sea ice coverage shrinks back so far now in the summer months that sea that was permanently locked up now can allow passage through. However, there has been one small hiccup thus far. They are currently stuck in Murmansk, Russia, because there is too much ice blocking the Northeast Passage that the team said didn't exist in the summer months. Real climate science also provides a graph showing that the current Arctic temperatures, despite alarmist claims of the Arctic being hotter than ever, is actually below normal. Now we have another article from Real Science that goes on to confirm this once again. And they are basically showing how the global temperature data is almost entirely made up by NOAA. Now they also provide this very interesting paragraph from an article in the New York Times that was published on the 5th of January in 1978. And this goes on to say, an international team of specialists has concluded from 8 indexes of climate that there is no end in sight to the cooling trend of the last 30 years, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. The report, prepared by German, Japanese, and American specialists, appears in the December 15 issue of Nature, the British journal. The findings indicate that from the 1950s to 1975, the cooling per decade of most climate indexes in the Northern Hemisphere was from 0.1 to 0.2 degrees Celsius, roughly 0.2 to 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Data from the Southern Hemisphere, particularly south of the latitude 30 south, are so meagre that reliable conclusions are not possible, the report says. So the cooling trend. And it just goes on to continue to show you that the data that they are using is absolute disinformation to continue to push this narrative that we are experiencing global warming. Now, the latest reports from meteorologists are now showing that we are due to move into a La Nina. So we were experiencing a El Nino, which is the warming of the sea, the warming of the oceans at the equator. And now we are moving into a La Nina, which is the cooling of the oceans at the equator. And so they are saying that we can start to expect that the climate will begin to cool, and probably by the beginning of 2017 we are going to actually start seeing evidence of this. Now, we are already seeing evidence of very unusual cold events, but we're also seeing evidence of events where we are seeing extremes in the higher temperatures. However, we actually don't see the mainstream media reporting on these cold events. You have to actually go and look out the information yourself, usually through smaller news outlets that are reporting at a local level. And so I will actually link a website, and they usually collect all of this data and post it daily on their website in relation to all of these cold events that we are experiencing and that the mainstream media are ignoring. But anyway, I did just want to bring you this information because, again, it just goes to confirm that the global warming narrative that is being pushed is a complete myth. It is complete disinformation, and we are actually moving towards a cooling. But again, this is how the establishment work. They basically always tell us the opposite of the truth, and then they hide everything right in front of our faces. Well, I'll leave it there, guys, and I'll post the articles underneath and you can check them out for yourselves. And as always, peace out.